There's a good chance that after college and working, some of your algebra might have gotten a little bit rusty. And obviously, if you're applying to business school or grad school, taking the GRE or the GMAT or one of those advanced tests, you need to get your algebra back on point. You're going to have multiplying monomials in pretty much as a step in pretty much every algebra problem. It's really, really common. You're going to see it a lot. What is a monomial? A monomial is something like a squared or b to the fifth. That's a monomial. It's just a single thing. Something like a plus b, that's not a monomial because that's two separate things separated by a plus sign. So let's talk about how to multiply them. It's honestly, a lot of it's probably easier than you remember it being the first time you learned it. Whether that you first learned in, say, 7th grade or 6th grade or 8th grade, whatever, this might be easier this time around. A times a, that's just simple. That's a squared. It's a simple exponent, right? A squared just means a times a, so a times a is a squared. And that's not too hard, but then it gets weird when you have things like a squared times a to the third. What do we do here? And sometimes people say that they get into their head about formulas, like what am I supposed to do? What's the right thing? What's wrong? Forget about all that. To do these, you just need to remember them in multiplication form. You can write these in multiplication form. What does a squared mean? It just means a times a. What does a cubed mean? It means a times a times a. That's all. So when we multiply these together, that's really just a times a times a times a times a, or just a to the fifth. That's it. What if you have something that has more than one type of variable? Let's see if a squared b times b squared. Just do the same thing. Just write it in multiplication form first. So you get a times b times b for b squared, or a squared b to the third. We might have something a little bit more complicated. What if I have ab squared? Now, here's the thing. When I say ab squared, only the b is being squared. The a is not being squared. Times a squared b to the third. What do? Just write it in multiplication form. A times b times b times a times a times b times b times b. Here's the thing about multiplication. You can change the order up. Whether you do 5 times 3 or 3 times 5 is the same thing. Or 5 times 2 times 5, or sorry, 5 times 2 times 3, or 2 times 3 times 5, it's going to give you the same number. Whatever order you do it in, it's going to get the same result. And the same is true with variables. So here I'm going to just basically put the order in whatever I think is convenient. I'm going to do all the a's first. I'm going to get a to the third, and I'm going to count out the b's and see there's 5. I'm going to get b to the fifth. And that's it. Now let's see what happens when we add in coefficients. What if you have, say, 4a times 3a? I'm going to do the exact same thing. And remember, what does 4a mean? 4a just means 4 times a. That's all. 3a, that means 3 times a. So I'm going to rewrite this again in multiplication form. I'm going to write 4 times a times 3 times a. Again, I'm going to put this in whatever order I want. You can multiply in any order. I'm going to do the 4 times 3 first to get 12a squared. 12 times a squared, or 12a squared. We could do it with something more complicated. Let's say I have 4ab squared, and remember that just means the b is being squared, times 5a squared b squared. I'm just going to write it in multiplication form. This is 4 times a times b, because the b is being squared, times 5 times a times b times b. And that's, at this point, you're just going to multiply in whatever order is convenient. I'll do the 4 times 5 first to get 20. Then I'm going to look at the a's. I realize there's 3 of them. I'm going to write a cubed, or a to the third. And I see that there's 4 of the b's. I'm going to write b to the 4th. And that's it. Now, obviously, over time, you get more comfortable. You might do some of these processes in your head instead of writing everything down. But if you're stuck, just write it out. Write it in multiplication form, either in your mind or on a piece of paper, and you'll get 100% of right. Yes, I know the GMAT is an advanced test, the GRE is an advanced test, but they're all built on mastery of these simple principles. If you get better with things like multiplying monomials, combining like terms, you will be able to build on that and you'll be able to dominate whichever test you're taking.